The Scream Kings are in no way responsible for any encounters with the paranormal, extraterrestrial abductions, eldritch insanity, hauntings, curses, hexes, demonic possessions, cryptozoological sightings, or any loss of sleep that results from listening to this podcast.
This is the Scream Kings podcast. I'm Nathaniel Darkish.
And this is Max George.
I thought I saw something out there in the podcast.
Nathaniel, I am so glad we're talking about this movie. It's been a long time coming. Here we go.
Okay, but before we get into movies, we have to introduce the third person in this virtual recording space.
Dun dun dun! Plot twist! That was amazing. Can we use that for future episodes?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just gonna shamelessly bill for that. Okay, well, could this mysterious oohing voice introduce herself?
For sure. My name is Willow Dawn Becker, and I'm a weirdie.
We love weirdies. We are weirdies.
Good. That is wonderful. Yeah, I'm a weirdie. I like, eating sugar-free ice cream, and I like cheerleading for fun and doing circus tricks, and sometimes I like watching someone's head fall off, and that's kind of what I do.
Willow, you gotta say what your favorite ice cream is now.
Oh, so I can only eat sugar-free ice cream, and I eat this stuff. It's called So Delicious, and I eat the chocolate chip mint, and it's so delicious. I actually ate the entire half pint, right before I got on. So good.
And that's why she's exuding this manic energy.
No, it's not manic because there's no sugar, man. It's all natural. It's all natural.
It is 100% a mental disorder. This
that's
mania.
Right. That's right. It is a mental problem, but I accept that and I love that part of me. So
that's fantastic. Willow, you are just, I mentioned this before we got on, but you're just exuding so much joy and just great energy.
Aww.
Sometimes Nathaniel and I, we love horror. We get spooky. We get macabre. But having someone with your pizzazz is just really refreshing.
Yeah, pizzazz, baby. I feel like that is something that I look for, in life. I think especially in horror. I'm always looking for the weird gem that's like, it's scary, but it's also kind of hilarious. And I just love that. Like, that's my sweet spot. I just like the combination of something that's actually scary and also actually funny.
Yeah, that's some of my favorite stuff in the world. So, well, no wonder we're friends.
I know. What a blessing.
Yes. I'm gonna be frank here, Nathaniel. You are very stoic and kind of professorial, and I know very little about Willow, but the energy you are giving, you two are like Midsummer and Hereditary, giving me the same vibe but different energies. This is great.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's funny, so Nathaniel and I met at LTUE at a con a few years ago. This is almost 6 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And we met in some ridiculous breakout. We're a horror writers group, and we connected there, and then we ended up what?
Oh, I was just gonna say, but what was so funny is that we were in this room full of 30 people, and basically it was you, me, and then Rachel, who's also been on the show several times.
Yeah.
We're the only ones that kind of vibed with each other, and we just kept we just took over that whole room and basically just kind of immediately walked out of it and became.
We're friends. We're no,
yep.
Yeah, we're together now.
It blows my mind because Rachel gives me this impression that she's very esoteric, very in tune with spirituality, and still a good time, of course. Nathaniel, you are that stoic professor, just kind of brooding in the background, not in a negative way. And then Willow, you're just this ball of energy. So the combined three just is the Triforce of horror, apparently.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. If you don't have, oh my gosh, Yeah, seriously. I think that you kind of have that. You have to have that kind of mix to really make things happen. And what I've found in my life is what I do is I find people, I attract people who are really talented and who are really driven, or they have big ideas, and sometimes there are people who don't know quite how to execute those ideas, and I am really attracted to those people, and I think of myself as an engine. Like, that's really what I do, is I find people, I find what their dream is, and then I just energize their dream and hopefully like try to make that thing happen. I just love, like, it really is my greatest love and joy in my life to make other people's dreams come true. It's actually one of the reasons why I started my own press. Like, I love making other people's dreams come true. It makes me really happy.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I guess to further the story along, we immediately formed a writing group. Unfortunately, that ended up kind of fizzling out over time just because life happens.
COVID happened, right after that as well.
Yeah, COVID, and then like Rachel moved across the country, and I don't know, just things went down, and that's how life goes. But we stayed in touch, and I would regularly reach out to Willow to say, hey, I need to finish reading this short story that you were working on that ended up getting into like full novella length, and
oh my god.
Which, by the way, is great. Willow is a talented writer as well as running her own press, which we'll get into in a second.
Yeah, I wanna back y'all up, and I wanna hear about how Willow got into horror. I have a sister who was a cheerleader. She did the pageant stuff, and horror's not like her vibe. That's not really two worlds that you see colliding. So, like, give us the origin story.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, so it's not. It's not great. I mean, the truth is that I was forced into horror at a very young age. And I don't know why. In fact, I have actually thought about this a lot because it doesn't really mesh very well with like my circles, anyway, whatever. I don't know. Like, socially speaking, I'm not the person who are like, oh, that seems like someone who's into horror, But when I was really young, I had a series of very, very bad babysitters. And my babysitters, in their own special and unique way, forced me into horror when I was really little. Like,
I love this already. Yeah. This is quintessential growing up in the 90s. This is wonderful.
No, it was horrible. I had like a neighbor. Her sons were like in their teenagers, and I was like four. I was like 4, and I came over, and they grabbed me and they forced me to watch Poltergeist. Like, they held me down and forced me to watch Poltergeist, and it ruined me. And I told my mom this like a year ago, and she's like, "Oh, I remember you. You had nightmares. You would wake up and you would scream about Jello in the bathtub." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's because they made me watch this movie when I was a tiny child." And I saw Evil Dead when I was 5. Same thing. Babysitter refused to let me leave the room. I'm like, "I don't want to watch this." She's like, "We're watching this as a family." And I'm like, what family watches Evil Dead together around the television?
To be fair, I know not a better family film than Evil Dead.
Yeah.
It's just a group of friends coming together to have a camping trip in the middle of nowhere.
Raped by a tree. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. And then when I was 8, I had another babysitter, but by that time I had already been completely screwed up, and so she'd come over and babysit, and then she would let me stay up and watch Freddy's Horrors. Do you remember Freddy's Nightmares? It was this will age me, but this was a show that was on after like 11 o'clock at night on Saturday night. And it was a horror anthology that was narrated and hosted by Freddy Krueger.
Because who's a better MC?
Yeah, seriously. It was terrifying. And I still, like, it's funny because all of that entire show, every episode is actually available on YouTube now. So I've gone back and watched the ones that really messed me up. And I'm like, no, this is really terrible. This is really terrifying still. Yeah, this is still scary.
This still holds up.
This still holds up, yeah.
So what would you say then your favorite horror has has turned into, I guess.
My favorite horror movie, novel, book.
Whatever you interpret
story.
that to be, yeah.
Well, for whatever reason, I don't even know why, but I have been incredibly attracted to short horror. Like, I love short horror, like with a burning, burning passion. And so when people are like, "What's your favorite, horror novel?" Well, I can tell you what the scariest horror novel is, which is Pet Sematary. It's the scariest novel ever. But as far as like my favorite horror movie, is The Descent, obviously,
Oh, so
and
good.
then and I actually watch that I watch that like maybe once a month. Like it's like my comfort movie. Like I watch it a lot.
I watch The Exorcist when I'm feeling sad, so I get it. I get it.
Yeah, there you go. My husband, he like every Christmas he watched The Shining. He's like, "It's my Christmas movie," and I'm like, "Okay."
Guys, we have
Sure,
found our
sure.
people. We have literally just found our people right here.
I know. So but I loved short fiction, and so I really like from a really young age, I really started really being into horror short anthological television shows. So I have seen and like I have reviewed every episode of Night Gallery. I have seen every episode of Twilight Zone, both the original and the 1983-84, I think is when it came out version. I have not seen the new one, and that makes me sad because I didn't want to pay for Paramount, but yeah, like I watch horror anthological television like crazy. Like I love it. All the Twilight Zone, all the Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt. Like the only one that I haven't seen, and it makes everybody sad, is American Horror Story, because it doesn't quite fit into what I love, which is I want a short piece of fiction. I want a short 30-minute piece of fiction in television show.
To be honest, you're not missing a whole lot. Ryan
Okay.
Murphy does pretty good in the beginning, but then he goes down the swirly side of insanity, and it just starts not to make sense at all.
Yeah. I was about to say, I thought that you were going to say that you didn't do it because you like shows that actually have a cohesive plot and story structure and
yeah, I do. I kind of find that the short structure, a Black Mirror, oh my gosh, so good. I love the short structure. I feel like it allows for a lot of creative, it's like a smorgasbord of creativity. And so you can have different directors with different visions, different tones and art direction. Everything can be its own individualized short film, which is, I think, an underused medium. I think they're wonderful. I think that they are fantastic. And I love having that cohesive plot in a short fiction where, like you said, you don't have to have 75 minutes of world building and magic structures and all this garbage. You can just have a great set of characters doing a great, awesome set of things, and then you get to move on and you get to eat another piece of bite-sized fiction. It's really just candy. It's just candy.
Well, and I think sometimes too, horror, it can lose its momentum if you aren't punchy enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There has to be a story that is delivered, but if it's done too quickly or too slowly, it loses a lot of that gravitas.
Yeah.
And the short story, I'm coming to understand, is a lot more potent than I thought perhaps before. So
and a lot harder to pull off, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I think to do it well, it's very difficult. I think that people say, "Oh, I'm going to make a short." I mean, I think that even filmmakers, I'm going to make a short film, but once you get into the short film, you're still doing an awful lot of editing, and you're still doing an awful lot of shots and reshots. There's still a lot of production that goes into it. Clearly not as much as a full feature or for a writer a full book, but to do a short well, you have to know where all the internal beats are. You have to have a really strong sense of the character. You have to have a really good understanding of economy of words, right? You have to know how to make the words do multiple things at the same time. And in short film, you have to know when to use words and when not to use words, especially in horror. Oh my gosh, and I'm sure you guys have talked about that before, but in short film, in long film, but in film generally, economy of words in horror, I think, is so valuable, because there is time in every horror film where you want nothing to be said. Sometimes there just has to be space. So it's just, I don't know. I am also coming from, I'm an actress too. And so I've actually been involved in a number of horror short films and horror features. And so it's really interesting to see kind of how those two worlds connect. And yeah, it's really exciting.
What is your favorite piece of short horror, whether that's a short story or a single episode of one of these anthology series? What is your favorite?
Oh man, that is such a hard question. It really depends on, it really depends on how you want to feel when you're done. Okay, so that's really what it's about, because I think that short fiction has this opportunity to pack such this massive punch. One of the things, one of the pieces that really jumps out at me is a piece that was done in Black Mirror. In the first season, I think it was first season. And that episode is called Shut Up and Dance. Now, they actually got a Emmy nomination for San Junipero. It's called San Junipero. It's not horror. It's more science fiction, that one, but it's really, really good. But they didn't get an Emmy nomination for Shut Up and Dance, but that is a phenomenal piece of fiction, and it is horrible. Like, in the most deep and true way, it is one of the most horrible pieces of fiction I've ever seen.
Isn't that the one with the teenage boy getting all of these instructions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that one's deeply messed up.
Yeah, it is. It's truly horrible. And I think what's truly horrible about, and you know what, I actually can't talk about it because it will spoil that episode. So if you've never seen it and you really want to feel terrible when you're done, then you should go and see it, because it has all of the elements that I love about a piece of fiction. I think another great piece of fiction, and this one's not short, but I do love it, is The Village, by M. Night Shyamalan. Shyamalan? I don't know. Yeah, Shyamalan. Anyway, that's a great piece. I really love that, and most people hate it. Most horror people hate it because it's set up to be one thing, and then it becomes something different halfway through. And I love that. I actually love that. I love having the rug ripped out from underneath me. I'm fine with something turning from a horror movie into a romance. I loved it. But most people who are really deep in horror hate that movie.
You know, I think it's one of Shyamalan's greatest works, if I'm honest. I think after that, he went kind of downhill.
Yeah. Lady in the Water. Ugh.
Oh, we don't talk about Lady of the Water.
or The Happening, or
right.
I mean, I could go on.
Yeah.
But I can see where you're coming from. I remember very vividly the first time I saw The Village, and there's the plot twist, and you're just like, wait, what?
Wait, what?
the call is coming from inside the house, kind of a thing. And it has power, and I can see how it would be very unnerving for people. Yeah. You know, like, horror is subjective.
Yeah, I think really the problem that people had was that they signed up for something different. They
wanted a monster movie.
Yeah, they signed up for a monster movie, and then when it was billed that way, but that's the way it had to. That's the way it had to be billed to make it work. And you could say, like, you could step back and say, well, the problem was that the twist came too early. You can't have the twist as your midpoint. You know, you can't have your twist as your midpoint. Otherwise, you spend the next half of the movie under the reality of the situation, and it becomes boring for people. But I don't think so. I think that that's a fantastic example of a movie that you have the twist at the middle, you have the midpoint is a completely perfect midpoint, and then you shift all of the motivations of every character, and they're still valid. There's still valid motivation. She has valid impetus to move forward, and there's still valid conflict. It just becomes not man against monster, but man against self, man against nature. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there are people who really disagree.
Well, and I mean, we all live in Utah here, right? And we can kind of portray it to high demand religion. It's not just the physicality of a monster, but perhaps the psychology and the religiosity of a monster that haunts us in the night that we want to escape from, but maybe can't. And that sounds very esoteric. And let's...
We've kind of gone far afield on this one. But...
it's okay. That's what I love about this podcast, is that we can.
That's nice.
But let's maybe shift gears here a little bit and talk about the movie that we would like to discuss.
Wait.
Oh my gosh, what?
We haven't talked anything about Weird Little Worlds Press.
We could talk about it later. Or we could talk about it now. But I have a press. And it's great. And it's called Weird Little Worlds Press. It is here in Utah. And it's like this hidden gem of black scariness. I don't know. It's that's not real. We are a genre fiction press. We do horror, science fiction, fantasy, and adventure novels, and we're coming up on our 3rd year of being a press, and we have had some good success, and I am really excited about the future. So,
well, so I can speak to 2 of your 3 publications. Because you put out 3 books so far, right?
Yes, we have 3 print books, and we have 5 books total, 6 books if you count the coloring book.
Ah, yes.
And you should.
6 books.
6 books.
Okay. But yeah. So in the horror realm specifically, we got 2 anthologies. Hey, how appropriate. We were just talking about short fiction.
Oh.
What a crazy random happenstance.
Yeah, that is a crazy random happenstance.
Yeah, weird that you would choose to make horror anthologies. But both of these anthologies are pretty freaking awesome. I haven't read enough of the first anthology yet. I'm going to remedy that. But I've read most of the second anthology. So the first anthology was Humans Are the Problem. And yeah, you came right out of the gate with that. And got all sorts of awesome horror writers that I...
Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. It was like a dream come true. I seriously, I don't really know why I have been so blessed. I can only imagine that, I don't know, maybe God's a horror fan. I don't really understand how it all works. But yeah, we had some incredible, some incredible writers for that first anthology, Humans Are the Problem, which is hilarious because humans are the problem. And so it's a monsters anthology written from monsters and monster advocate perspectives. So humans are typically in this anthology the problem and the antagonist, and the monsters are the ones who are telling the stories, or the monsters are shown in their best light. So yeah, so it's great, and we got some fantastic writers like Gabino Iglesias and Lisa Morton. We had
John Langdon,
Philip Fracassi. Whoa, his story is so good in that. If you haven't read the Aquarium Diver story, that one is really good. It's one of my favorites. And then Gemma Files, actually, her story called Poor Butchered Bird. Her story ended up in Ellen Datlow's Best Horror of the Year anthology, which is kind of like the quintessential compilation. Ellen actually reads every single piece of short fiction in the horror community every year. And so she picks the top like 12 or 15, and she puts them in her final anthology for the year. And so she picked Gemma's story for this last year. And that was kind of a feather in our cap. We were so excited that we were able to help with that.
Yeah, and then this second anthology, Mother: Tales of Love and Terror.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, I stared at the cover for probably, I don't know, a minute, maybe, Nathaniel, when you showed me it. It was just, I don't know, so compelling.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. That's great. Yeah, we got this phenomenal artist out of Ukraine, actually, who was able to make that art for us before everything kind of shut down over there. Oh man, that anthology, I have to tell you, I am very, very proud of. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of Christy, who is my co-editor on that. And Michael Clough actually helped me with the first anthology. He was great too. But Christy, she is amazing. She's actually a fantastic writer in her own right. She has just released Bulow. That was released last year, and that's actually up for a Bram Stoker Award this year. She's on the long list for best new novel. So she's amazing. And then we had incredible writers. John Langan came back. Brian Evanson, who also grew up here in Utah. And, of course, we had Gemma come back. We had Danye Coles, Haley Piper, who won a Stoker last year, Ai Zhang, Christina Singh, like really a ton of fantastic writers, and some great new writers like Katie McIver and Patrick Barb was last year, but like Elizabeth McClellan, who's one of our poets. And Victoria Nations, another one of our poets. We just had phenomenal, both really established writers and also a bunch of really fantastic new writers. We had over 600 submissions, so we were really pleased. We got some great work, and it was hard to turn a lot of those stories away.
Though I played my own part in helping turn those stories away when I read some slush for you.
Oh, that is true. You did, huh? That means you got one of our packages, or one of our care packages.
I did. It is sitting right next to me right now, actually.
Yay!
Wow. I didn't get one. That's cool.
Well, you didn't read slush.
You gotta read slush. Yeah, it was amazing. I've never managed that many slush readers before. We had something like 25 readers, and we do 3 rounds of slush reading. So anyway, I know this is totally off topic, but it is such a massive project to really do it, because we do read those stories at least 3 times. They always get read at least 3 times, and then the final stories, they get read by they get read like 6 or 7 or 8 times. Like they just get read and read and read and read until we are sure what we want to do. So it's crazy.
Yeah, and that seems to be paying off, because it's also on the Stoker ballot that just came out the other day. And
it's true, yeah. That's the long list now. It's not the short list. So you have to be careful, because it's called the preliminary ballot, which means that they took the top 10 of every category, and then what they'll do in February is they'll whittle it down to the final nominations, and that is the top 5. So we are up against some really great work right now, like the Ohio anthology, I think, made it on the top 10. Human Monsters, which is Sadie Hartman, her book is on there. Of course, Ellen Datlow has an anthology. I think she wins every year. So it's really hard to compete in short fiction, because Ellen is really good, and we all know it. It's always, I hope I'm having, just pray for us.
I mean, but also give credit where credit is due, regardless if it's a preliminary list or not. Like, that's an achievement in and of itself.
It really is.
And you should be proud,
No,
Plus,
I am.
That's
it's
awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah, plus one of the stories is also on just the best short story list, too. So.
Yes, it is. Mercedes M. Yardley has a story in Mother called Fracture, and it is wonderful. And by the time you hear this podcast, it will be available on our website, and you'll be able to read it for free. It's very, very good. It's really touching. The first line is, "My mother married a man made of glass." And that's all you need to know. So it's really good. Mm-hmm.
And then also you just dropped a novel of your own just a month ago. So
yeah, in December. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a little aside. It's like kind of on the side sideways. It's a science fiction horror, but it is more science fiction than horror. But there's definitely parts where people take their own bodies apart. Like it's definitely got some moments that are going to be a problem, but it looks like it's not a problem in such a way that people are so grossed out that they want to put it down. That was kind of like the goal. Is we have our press is a PG-13 press, so it kind of like kind of like Watcher in the Woods. We want it to be scary. We want it to be maybe scarier than that movie, but we want it to be scary. But we also want it to be accessible for people who don't think that they like horror. So scary, intense, makes you feel uncomfortable, but then it's okay. You don't feel like garbage when you're finished reading it, right? You don't want to feel bad when you're done. So yeah, so Leto's Children is our science fiction horror, and that was released in December, and it's awesome. It will make you laugh, and it will make you feel terrible, and it will also make you cry, and then it will make you feel good.
And I can also say good things about it because I have read that one, and
you have?
Is very good. Yes.
Oh, that's so cool! You're the best.
I'm sorry, when my friends drop a book, I buy it immediately.
Oh, you are the best, Nathaniel. Oh my gosh, you're the best.
So everyone should also pick that up, or
Yeah.
just pick up all of these books. They're all great.
Yeah, they're all great. Oh, and you know what? They're all on sale right now.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, like, if you go, like, they're all on sale. If you go to my website, if you go to weirdlittleworlds.com, you can get Mother, like, $5 off. And it, like, from Amazon. It's cheaper than Amazon if you get it at the website. And then if you get Leto's Children, it's free on Kindle Unlimited right now. And then it's $2.99 for the ebook. And Mother, the ebook is not on sale, but so I lied about that. But it's pretty great anyway, so go get it.
Well, all of very due promotion aside, let's talk about a movie, Watcher in the Woods from 1980.
Yes. Something happened in these woods. Something that has never been explained. And it's happening again. Now.
Did you hurt yourself?
Oh, it's just a little cut.
What sort of person are you? Sensitive? Do you sense things?
The past pursues the present like a recurring dream. What began as a game ended when a young girl vanished into thin air.
I think this is our first Disney movie to
Yes!
be covered on the show.
I think it is probably the only Disney movie being able to be on the show, Nathaniel.
It's true. Oh my gosh. They were crazy. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking, you know. Like, this was such a weird foray for them because they did this one and then they did the one about the weird scary pirate. It was like Bluebeard, or you guys know what I'm talking about? There was like a super scary there's a section of time in the late 70s, early 80s, and then maybe into the 90s when they tried out like 4 or 5 horror movies Disney did, and it was weird.
I don't have any idea what you're talking about with this pirate movie, but I mean, I guess kind of a similar vein would be like Escape to Witch Mountain and its sequel. I was obsessed with those as a kid. Holy cow!
It was called the Googity Giggity. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is gonna destroy me.
It sounds like you're Quagmire from Family Guy.
Oh, you know what? I am going to figure it out. I'm gonna figure it out because it was really, really weird. I met somebody who brought it up, and I was like, "That's the movie." It's like it's been retconned. It like doesn't exist anymore. I'm gonna find it for you. I promise.
I feel like it is in this weird like dark age of Disney where it was before, you know, the classical Disneys, the Little Mermaids, the Aladdins, but then it was coming out of Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, and they didn't really know where to go. Mm-hmm. And Disneyland was really just starting to blossom, and the company was kind of up and down financially. And I feel like they were just trying to put their hands in every single pot that they possibly could.
It's true. I think they were just spinning like I didn't know this, but I just saw this. They also put out Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Oh yeah.
Around that same time, which is a really interesting movie. Like I really like it, and I thought it was really scary too. That's a really interesting one.
I love the book. I keep meaning to watch the movie, but it's hard to find.
Yeah, so it's an 83, but that's a really good one. What was this one called? Oh my gosh. Something ghosting. I'm gonna find out. Don't worry about it. Anyway, yeah. But it was weird, but Disney has always had I personally think Disney has always had a little bit of a dark side. At least they did, especially in the war years. Like, man, I'll tell you what, Dumbo. That is a scary movie.
I think Disney.
Dumbo's scary.
is pretty low-key horror.
Yeah.
If you strip back a lot of the family values that they're trying to, well, the heteronormative family values that they are throwing on us, they're kind of edgy. They really have been pushing a lot, I think, in the media, and Disney is so huge. I mean, I'm a Disney file. I really love the company, and I think they do a lot of good work. They're not perfect, of course. Everyone has their shit. But I really think there are some core aspects of Disney that really push against the grain a little bit. You think of the Haunted Mansion or Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland. They really are kind of on this threshold of being spooky. You know, my daughter, if you say it's scary, she won't be into it. But if you say it's spooky, then she's like, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
And Disney does that really, really well. And I think Watcher in the Woods in particular is a movie that excels in this quite phenomenally. It's not perfect.
No.
But it really kind of has that nostalgia and that, kind of that flavor of the time for what family-friendly horror felt like and looked like.
Yeah.
Like it was Poltergeist without the scare, right? It was E.T. It was this moment that really awakened a lot of people to the horror world.
Yeah, and that's definitely what they were competing against, right? Like these Spielberg early ventures and stuff like that. Gremlins, all of that kind of stuff was kind of coming out at around the same time. Give or take a couple of years, and so it makes sense that they would be wanting a slice of that pie. Obviously, I think it didn't work out for them as successfully as some of these other big companies, but they eventually have I think started kind of dipping their toe back in more recently. But
it's interesting to think of them as being maybe not 100%. I don't know, maybe solvent's the wrong word, but like you were saying before, just not really knowing how to compete. You have things like the Goonies, and you've got like, all of these kind of kid-centric, scary things that came out kind of in that late 70s, early 80s. This was like, this was the great golden age of horror films. It really was. Like the late 70s and the early 80s, that was it. That was the time. That was the moment when horror really exploded. And Disney wanted to cash in, I think. And so here we have Watcher in the Woods, where they get the best scary lady ever. They get effing Bette Davis to be in this movie. Oh my gosh, like seriously, how you can't get better than that. She was so good. I mean, this was right, it wasn't right after, but she was already such an icon in horror. She had done all of these fantastic movies where she played this murderess. She played some scary villain. She was in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which was really one of the best horror films of the 60s and 70s.
And just like
so
a mind bend, for lack of a better word, right? Like the four-letter F word that I'm thinking.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So great. But the fact that they have her headlining in this is amazing, right? And then I think another really great thing that they did here. Oh, I don't know if I should go on. I should probably stop. I have so much. But anyway.
No, keep going.
Well, I think that the other thing that they did that was really great here is that they hired a bunch of nobodies to be in this movie. And I think that people were so much better. I think that movie houses specifically were so much better about doing that with horror. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that movie doesn't work if you have people in that movie who everybody knows. It only works if you hire locals, which is what they did. They went some down in the middle of nowhere and they hired nobodies to be in that movie. And it's the same thing here. They hire, some random kids and then Bette Davis. And it works.
Bette Davis haunted my childhood for years.
Oh, yeah.
Because of this film. I just was absolutely spooked by her portrayal.
Yeah, she's scary. Like, she's a scary lady. But I think that the part of this movie that scared me so much was this, I don't know, how else you can avoid it, but this concept of being trapped inside of a mirror, of having a ghost inside of the mirror who's like blind. Like it's just so scary, especially if you're like, 8, 9, 10, which is how old I was when I saw this movie. So, and I showed it to my kids and they thought it was terrifying. Like I showed it to my 12-year-old and my 4-year-old, and they thought it was terrifying, and they played Karen, like the pretend game Karen. We played Karen in our house for like the next 3 months after I watched this movie with them. And my daughter's like, "Let me be Karen this time," and then we'd play the whole plot. We'd play the whole movie out. She'd be like, "Oh no, the bell is falling," Anyway, so we just like
Narek.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Anyway, crazy. And then of course we'll talk, I'm sure, about the false or the second ending on this movie. But
yes,
so much.
Well, one thing that I find so interesting, and this is kind of getting in, just jumping straight into the ending, which we've already kind of done a little bit, but is that like there's this weird kind of moment in time where we had a lot of these kind of like ghostly, occulty kind of movies and books and stories and stuff that all ended up having like an alien twist to it.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that comes to mind is Escape to Witch Mountain, which I mentioned I was obsessed with as a child.
Right.
But yeah, like I don't know what it is that this kind of like UFO alien kind of thing, tying it into like the ghostly, was such a like brief cultural zeitgeist. But I enjoy that because I love a lot of good alien stories and I love a lot of good ghost stories, and so kind of giving me a thing that delivers on both is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
This is a complete kind of guess here, but I wonder if Disney, when they were kind of approaching horror, they wanted to stay out of kind of the paranormal supernatural realm, the occultism, the Wicca, the demons, yada yada yada, and wonder if the alien twist was a way for them to kind of bring it back to that family friendly motif of here is something ghosty and that's really spooky, but just kidding, they're aliens and everything's okay.
Yeah,
just a thought I had, right?
I think that's right. I think that's correct.
Yeah, that's probably why they were drawn to these books, right? Like, because this is based on a book that came out, I don't know, 4 years before the movie did. Same name. It's by Florence Engel Randall, and I read the Wikipedia page about it. And yeah, like that is the twist of the book too. And it apparently gets way more into like what it's like to be on the alien dimension side of things, and how I guess like 50 years on Earth is one day over there, and all sorts of weird stuff. But yeah, like I wonder if that was kind of the thing that they were hunting for, was, hey, what's something that's spooky and eerie, but is going to not get people pointing satanic panic fingers at us.
Yeah.
We have to remember too that we landed on the moon in 1969, and this movie came out in the 80s. I think 1980 exactly.
Yeah.
And so space and the final frontier was very on the forefront of a lot of Americans, and Disney himself was kind of a revolutionary when it came to space exploration. You go to Disneyland or Disney World, and space exploration is just a huge component of the Disney zeitgeist that we are going through.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think that the concept of aliens is so much less offensive to a starstruck nation than the concept of ghosts. I do think it's really interesting, though, speaking about that kind of the knee-jerk desire to pull away from the supernatural. I find it very interesting that in was the early 90s, then they released the oh my gosh, the one with Bette Midler. That one.
Hocus Pocus.
Yeah,
Hocus
the Hocus.
Pocus?
They released Hocus Pocus, and they keep it pretty light still. But in this most recent iteration of this, they actually really leaned into the witchcraft. They like really leaned. They leaned deeply in.
For
like
sure.
they're
And
like,
like millennial witchcraft too, not like this weird esoteric, this is old spinster witchcraft. It was this like
we're
crystals.
Doing Wiccan. So this is Wiccan practice. This is a spiritual and religious practice, and we're going to lean deep into it. And it was really interesting to watch that transition, right? Like, because in 1980, where we are here, we're going to get away. It was far away from a seance or whatever. We'll do it. But it's not really a seance. It's an alien. We're calling aliens, guys. We're not calling evil spirits. And then, fast forward to 2021, when they're like, we're going to go ahead and do a summoning circle now. And
we're going to go to a sacred forest and banish the evil from this forest.
Okay, I guess that's what we're going to do now. So Disney has changed a little bit, I think.
Quite a bit. And I really did, though, appreciate a lot of the occultism in Watcher in the Woods. Willow, you probably don't know, but I am a super fan of anything related to occultism. Aleister Crowley, tarot cards, runes, demonology, grimoires. I have a lot of very powerful grimoires in my library that could summon the apocalypse if I wanted.
Ooh, don't do that.
We maybe read a spell to summon a demon in our 3rd episode, which I blame for most of our tech problems since then.
It's fine. He lives in my house and I pay the rent, so he understands this relationship. But
be careful about all that. I'm gonna have them girls from Hocus Pocus showing up at your house and
we would have a blast. But I really enjoyed a lot of the symbolism that they used in Watcher in the Woods. Whoever kind of was the set design and the special effects really understood occultism. There are a lot of triangles, which are very powerful of elemental magic when it comes to occultism. Mirrors, of course, are very prolific in any sort of supernatural kind of events. They're viewed as windows into the unknown or the other side or different dimensions. And then, of course, there are so many fae concepts, fairy circles and the forests and even the Watcher himself, regardless if he's an extraterrestrial being. And I used masculine pronouns. The Watcher can definitely be female or non-binary.
It is female in the book.
Oh, is it? That's funny.
All of this, it's very related to this kind of subtle occultism that I think Disney was trying to poke and provoke. But again, of course, then it switches to alien, and you're just like, oh, okay, we're aliens now. It's cool. It's all right.
Interdimensional aliens.
But let's not talk about the pentagrams, and the triangles and all of this other stuff going on. So
yeah, very interesting.
And I have to say, one of the things that really worked for me in this movie is just how jarring that image of Karen blindfolded popping up randomly in mirrors all over the place, especially in the hall of mirrors.
The carnival. Yeah, I agree. I seriously, I think that the imagery is so strong. It was so strong that it stuck with me for years. I mean, like, it was 20 years before I was like, man, the internet's so cool. I wonder if I could find what that movie was. And that's, amazingly, I was able to track it down based on the fact that I had remembered the title of the movie. But it was, the internet's magical. But it was so cool that imagery kind of forwarded me all through all that, the 2 decades. It was like that was so, like, it was so really, interesting and scary to me as a young person to have a cracked mirror and have there be an image that wasn't my own in it. That's terrifying.
I mean, those are the things that I wanted to talk about that I liked because, to be perfectly honest and candid, I had seen the movie once when Max made me watch it in his mother's basement years ago, and then I watched it just a couple days ago, and as soon as I was done with it, I walked into the room where my wife was, I don't know, watching Gilmore Girls or something, and I was like, that movie was not very good. So I have lots of thoughts about things I don't like about it and problems I have like with the story, but you chose this title and I know that you love this movie.
I
so
do. I
Are there more things that you want to talk about on the
before you start ripping it apart?
Yes.
Right.
Build up that foundation a little bit more before I take a sledgehammer.
I think that what you should do is you should start ripping into it, and I will just counterpoint you.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's Nathaniel's favorite thing. I do have to say before we do start to castrate it, for lack of a better term, it has a sense of nostalgia for me that I hold very dear to my heart. It's one of my mother's favorite films. That's why I showed it to Nathaniel that one time. And I think this film, along with a few others like E.T. and even Goonies and, yada, 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 holds a special place for us as children.
Yes.
Because Bette Davis was so scary. And the story was so... It was...
Weird.
It was a chance for kids to participate in the horror of adults while still staying safe and, within those boundaries that grown-ups always have to put on children. And so I joked earlier that when I look at Watcher in the Woods, I'm wearing bifocals, right? I have my nostalgia lenses up front, but then when I put my eyes down, I have those critic lenses. So let's all hold some space. That this movie is foundational for children and giving them horror seeds that eventually blossom into horror flowers.
I totally agree. In fact, I still suggest this movie to people who are not horror fans, but who want to see something that's a little scary. And I think that's actually I think that's a really important place. Like I have read a lot of horror now. I've seen a lot of horror. I have absorbed a lot of horror content in my life. But there are lots of people who never have and who really believe that they don't like horror. They really believe that. But the fact is that they are wrong. Everyone likes horror. Everybody likes it. It's just that you need to find the part or the type of horror that connects at the place where you feel most comfortable. Just like you were saying, no one wants to get on a roller coaster that doesn't have any brakes and that is very much going to smash into the side of a building. No one wants to get into that roller coaster because it's dangerous and it makes you feel like you're in danger because you are in danger. But what you want to do is you want to get on a roller coaster that's been ridden a lot of times, that is specifically designed to, be kind of exciting, but not so exciting that you feel really like you're going to die. And I think that that's really where this one works for a lot of people. It is scary. It is unnerving. It is tense. It does give you all those wonderful horror feelings without putting you into any kind of emotional, spiritual, physical, mental danger, right? Like you feel like you've had an adventure when you're done. You don't feel like you want to kill yourself.
Yeah, and horror is subjective, of course. As horror critics, we can approach a movie like The Exorcist or The Shining, these iconic films that really defined the genre. But we have to give space for those gateway horror movies that allowed us to embrace the dark and kind of titillate ourselves and poke that horror bare. So with all that said, Nathaniel, go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing is that this movie is dead boring.
It takes a while. You're right.
Like, okay, there are these great moments that like really pull me in, as I've mentioned. And then there are 25-minute gaps where nothing happens that is meaningful at all. And it's just like kids walking around a field. And I'm like, why is this shot this long? There is no reason that the shot is this long. They're just it feels like it's a movie that they had 45 minutes of good, interesting content for, but they wanted it to make it 90 minutes. And so they found ways to pad the runtime. And so that right off the bat just kind of is my first kind of big qualm, is that when I was engaged, I was having an okay time. Again, I'm going to get into some of the story issues I had, but when it wasn't those moments, I was so bored. It took like all of my self-control to not just like play, some dumb game on my phone or something, because I just it's very, very slow when it's slow.
I just had a thought, Nathaniel, that I kind of want to run by you and see what you think here.
Yes.
I know for a fact your mother, may she be blessed in this life and the next, because she knows me and I can feel her staring at me as I say these words. I know she kind of censored your ability to watch horror.
Yes.
You had to do a lot of it in secret. And there were some, kind of levels. I won't put words into your mouth, but sometimes maybe shame or guilt about watching horror, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
With these kind of iconic horror movies, you don't like Hocus Pocus, you didn't love Watcher in the Woods. Do you think, you didn't get that nostalgia blossom when you were a kid watching these films, and so perhaps you are a little more aggressive in your critiques because you don't have that just love and joy for them?
Okay, well,
neither is wrong. I just had this thought as I was listening to you.
Okay. I see where you're coming from, because you are coming from to this, from a very nostalgic place. It was foundational. I think, objectively, I don't have any built-in nostalgia for this movie. The whole time, I wished I had nostalgia, because it would have brought me in more, I think. I keep bringing up Escape to Witch Mountain, because the whole time it reminded me of it, but in a way that I was just like, oh, I wish I was watching Escape to Witch Mountain. So I guess along those lines, because I don't have that nostalgia, I just feel like I can see these things for what they actually are. I don't know.
You mean
yikes?
You see them as awesome? Because that's correct.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. That went dark real fast. Lovely.
You know what I think? I think that you are coming from a different time. I think that you're coming from a different place when it comes to film consumption. Because if you go back and you take a look at even some of the great horror films of the late 70s and the early 80s, you'll find that there are large spaces, maybe The Hills Have Eyes, or even what's the one with the pig and the screaming and the guys on the boat? Anyway, that one, with the banjo. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, that one.
Deliverance.
Yes, Deliverance. So there's big spaces. And especially since the scenery is such a big character, the woods themselves are a character in this movie. There's all this space. There's space for you to feel the oppression of the woods. And I know that you're gonna say, because I've seen your list already, so I know what you don't like about this. One of the things that you don't like about this is because there's all these weird angles where it's being shot through leaves and there's half covered by woods. Those are purposeful choices. We're supposed to feel that the woods are dangerous. They are oppressive. There's a reason that this family comes from the city to the country, which is the danger. The woods are a dangerous creature, and we have to have space to feel that it is uncomfortable here, that it is oppressive. So maybe it doesn't work all the time, and especially if someone has, spent a lifetime watching Saw and Exorcist and, all these mile-a-minute movies. But if you're in the early 80s and you haven't seen a lot of scary movies, and you're, then this is a really great opportunity to feel the space that is necessary for tension.
Counterpoint.
Okay, I'm listening.
My favorite horror movie is Alien, which is so full of space.
Yeah, that's great.
And
that's
so
great
full of room to breathe.
It literally is in space.
It's true. You're right.
But yeah, like that movie does take its time, absolutely. And okay, I will give you that some of the time it really is doing a good job of creating these moments that show us the woods becoming more and more oppressive and kind of creating this sinister atmosphere. And I think that some of the time it does that very successfully. when they're outside. There are also a lot of scenes where they're just doing nothing inside for a long time.
You're right. I'm going to go ahead and give that to you. I think that the one that sticks out to me, there is a scene where she is in the house fooling around with a bunch of Betty Davis's stuff.
Yeah.
Like she's like walking around, like looking in her drawing room. She's kind of wandering around the drawing room. And eventually she happens upon the music box, right? But that scene, like you said, that scene is a little long. It's a little long.
I also want to point out, too, that we need to remember that this is a film made for a family audience.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing makes kids more excited than a boring movie. Than nothing happening.
To be fair, though, think about it, Nathaniel. If you're a child and you go outside, what's going to be the scariest thing to you? It's not going to be ghosts or possession. It's going to be what's in the forest.
Wild animals.
All of this is said in tongue-in-cheek because I agree with you on a lot of these things.
Yeah.
I think the acting in this film, other than Betty Davis, it can be a little unbearable sometimes.
Yeah, it's pretty wooden.
A little.
Jan, or is it Jan?
What's her? Yeah, exactly. That's what you think her name is because she's just like Jan Brady. Exactly. That is exactly right.
She just is a lot.
The little like relationship that she has with the neighbor is like almost a subplot, but not a subplot.
Yeah, it's like this like.
Yeah.
Will they, won't they, but will they not?
They're
will
not
they
going
not?
to. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely not. I think what's really interesting, so when you were saying that, Nathaniel, when you were saying, oh, it's really slow, what I realize is that you're probably right. You're probably correct in that the writer, whoever the writer was, and I don't know that information, but the writer created a screenplay that was so straightforward that it was probably very true to the original story. But there was all this extra space, and I think that this movie would have benefited greatly from a subplot, and it just didn't have one. There's not a single subplot, except if you take into consideration the story of the parents, the parents who have already grown up and they were involved in like the seance thing. But even that's not really a subplot either. That is the main plot. That's the plot. So it really would have benefited from a subplot. And I wonder if I haven't seen the remake, so I wonder if the remake remedied that, because I wonder about that.
I also have to give credit where credit is due here too, Nathaniel. You brought up a good point in our show notes about how Watcher in the Woods is a really good, I think, example of a slow burn that fizzles out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this occultism, a lot of this kind of mythos that is being built up with the kids and Betty Davis and what's going on and this eclipse and a lot of this very kind of metaphysical kind of atmosphere. And then all of a sudden it's aliens. All of a sudden it's a Watcher. All of a sudden it's like, okay, boom, signed, sealed, delivered, movie's done. And as a critic, again, I have my bifocals on. It doesn't breathe. It needs a chance to kind of explain itself, and it doesn't do that at all. It falls short of executing the true horror of what happened that first night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and when it does explain itself, it literally just is someone explaining it to you, right? Like, it's just the Watcher shows up, explains everything, they switch back, roll credits.
Yeah, I mean, good point.
Yeah, it really is. So I agree. So here's the thing. Here's what I agree with. I agree that there are elements of the plot that are incredibly rushed, but you have to consider that is not the original ending for this movie.
Fair point.
Fair point. So that's something to consider. That's the first part. Not that the original ending is any better. It's not. So that's the other point. They're both bad. But and I think that the reason why I think that they're just not very fulfilling. You know what I mean? Like, we have wanted. I kind of started off this whole interview talking about how I love when you have something and it becomes something else, and I do. I really love that. But I think that in this case, it actually feels like a punt. Like like it really does feel like ghost, different dimension. And and you're like, wait, what? Oh, also there's an
and they're kicking.
eclipse. Wait, what?
Yeah, and they're
it
kicking
just
you out of the
looked-
theater before you can even properly
Yeah.
question those things.
Exactly. And so you admit you actually have you had stated earlier before this in your notes that that the eclipse doesn't show up until like the day before it happens. and this is just a writing problem. So you have to wonder, like, what was the problem here that the writer didn't set up that scene effectively? Were things cut? Was it forgotten? Because it doesn't seem like Disney would have poured a bunch of money into making a feature film without recognizing that some of the script wasn't really working together very well. But it also might have been something that they didn't test. I don't know. But yeah, it is a little weird. There's some weird plot stuff at the very end. It's just really rushed.
Yeah, well, and like having read through the thing about the novel that preceded it, the eclipse is part of it, and so was it that author just decided that was their solution at the last minute because they didn't know how to end the book, or like it feels like a convenient ending as opposed to an earned ending. Part of the mystery. The mystery was kind of moot, really, the whole time. We get little pieces of it, and then, oh, it's the eclipse. We better do the ritual again.
The more we talk about it and kind of verbalize these ideas, it makes me remember a lot of kind of the frustrations I had in the movie Nope, where, we're led to believe one thing, and we were really excited about that one thing. And then all of a sudden we have to kind of pivot and, like you said, Willow, punt our kind of thinking into something that is completely different from what we were told. And there's power in that. I think horror can do that effectively, but we have to be cautious about how far the punt goes. Are we going from, supernatural to extraterrestrial? Are we going from extraterrestrial to monster movie? Where are the bridges? Where are kind of those subtle signs that the movie has given us to make it make sense?
Yeah, where's the foreshadowing?
Yeah, and I do feel like Watcher in the Woods, it did that kind of right turn pivot where we're like, oh wait, this is an alien film. And it kind of leaves you a little jarred and perhaps unstable.
It's true, but they do try to make it make sense. Like if you look at the actual logic of it, it's logically makes sense. There was a massive, it was an eclipse, and accidentally at the same time as the eclipse, there was these people doing this seance, and because the seance happened at the same time as the eclipse, it put this girl into. Oh, am I spoiling the movie?
Yeah, that's fine.
It put this girl into a different dimension where she stayed locked for 7 years until there was another eclipse at the exact same place, and they were doing the seance at the exact same time. And then there was an alien that was, I don't know, watching. I don't even remember what the Watcher does. All I know is that she was trying to get back out. Oh, the Watcher was trying to get her out of their dimension because they didn't want her in the dimension. That was what was going on.
And trying to switch back.
Yeah, and they're trying to switch, but right, because the Watcher was a entity that had been kicked out of the dimension when she had gone into the dimension, and so he wanted her back in her dimension, and he wanted back in his dimension, and the end.
Also, it's a Disney film.
Right.
we need to hold space. Again, I think I've said it too many times that this film is not designed to be geared towards horror fans. This is something that families can sit together on their family home evenings, for my Mormon listeners, and watch together and talk about, those alien motifs. And we can go on and on about kind of the plot nuances and what worked and what didn't work. But at the end of the day, it's a Disney film, and it can be what it is.
So what I'm hearing is that it's okay if it's full of plot holes and bad storytelling devices if it's Disney.
Yes.
Oh yes,
Okay,
Nathaniel.
okay,
Get on or get out.
Okay. Well, let me just bring one more thing to the table, because I think this is where it just doesn't, like, okay, you get to the twist and then you kind of, naturally go, oh, was this set up? Was this foreshadowed? Like, that's kind of what your brain does, even if you might not be thinking of it in those terms, right? Like, oh, what were the clues to this? Could I have figured this out? That's the kind of thing that we like to do when we have these kind of weird mysteries that characters are solving, and then we find out all of the pieces, right? Like, that's the bread and butter of any mystery in any story. So my question is, okay, a little bit more framing, and then I'll get to my question. So shortly before the eclipse happens and they're able to do the ritual again and all that kind of stuff, the Watcher entity, does some stuff to kind of help shepherd them to make these connections, right? To kind of tie enough stuff together that they know, oh no, we have to get these people together so we can replicate the ritual and make the swap back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on board with what the Watcher's motivations were during that time. And it was very time sensitive. It had to do it during the eclipse, apparently, which, again, they should have hinted at that way earlier and mentioned it maybe when we had the backstory, but that's fine, whatever. My question is, why is it so menacing and threatening up until that point? Like, why is it causing horses to freak out and causing car accidents and almost, getting these kids killed when these kids are going to be the ones that help be its redemption, right? Like, why is it doing that? That is the thing that kind of bothers me, because it feels like for the first 2/3, 3/4 of the movie, the Watcher's goal is to intimidate and scare them and to potentially put their lives in peril. And then for the last chunk, it's to make the switch back and solve the mystery and hooray, get back to my dimension. Those two things are at such intense odds with each other that it feels like, again, a fundamental, like, failure of storytelling. It feels like, the writer had a cool idea and then got a new cool idea, and instead of writing a new story about that, just mushed them together and hoped that no one noticed the very obvious seams, right? Like, that's my problem, is really just, I can forgive a lot of things. I'm, I know kind of what I'm getting when it comes to live action 70s Disney movies. I've seen them. And there's a lot of charm and fun up to them. But yeah, it's just that it's really hard to swallow this kind of last pill, right? Like, to me, this is almost the same as if in It, Pennywise, it was hunting down children, killing children, and at the end it turns out, oh, well, it actually had this noble motivation, and we can just kind of forget about what happened in the first 3/4 of the movie. Like, but it almost killed them a couple times. It threw her in water, and an old lady had to save her, and then later almost caused the little girl to get hit by a truck on a horse.
You know what? I think that's a good question. All right, that's a great question. And it feels like I don't have a good solution, because I think that's what happened. I think the writer was writing one story, and then they were made to write a different story. And I don't really know why. It doesn't fit. It was
the 70s. Cocaine was a hell of a drug.
My only thought is this. My only thought is, from a directorial perspective, we actually are moving with the children, right? The children is where that's where the story is seen through, the eyes of the children. And it's through the eyes of the children that we are observing all of the world. And so we are scared. We need to be scared by the Watcher. We need to feel the fear of that, because it is an unknown and it is terrifying. But when the children start understanding the methodology, or that something larger is going on, or that they can be a part of the solution, and that maybe doing, being part of this seance and getting people back together again is gonna help somebody do something, then it is no longer a threat, and so they don't perceive it as a threat, and neither do we. So maybe from a directorial standpoint, he wanted us to feel threatened until the shift, and then we could understand that we are not in any danger at all. That's my guess, but I totally feel you. I think that there is a problem. It does feel disconnected.
And maybe the people who were working on The Watcher in the Woods just had so much going on with The Fox and the Hound and Herbie Goes Bananas and other Disney films that it just didn't meet Nathaniel's expectations.
You know what? You just missed out when you were 8 and you didn't get to see this movie because your mom didn't let you. And
yeah, exactly.
That's the problem. You just missed out, man.
You're the problem, Nathaniel.
I see.
So no, okay. So, but before we leave this forever, we do have to talk about the original ending.
Yes.
Because there is a different ending. And that original ending has an alien that is intensely terrifying.
It's like this ghostly, skeletal figure.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm gonna try and see if I can find a picture of it.
It is not pretty.
First Watcher in the Wood End. Yeah, because I thought it was just a super gross looking alien. I didn't think it was a ghost. I thought it was a really gross alien.
It looks like Mothman almost.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Mothman.
It's like it's got all these it's really like a Lovecraftian kind of alien monster.
It's like Mothman's love child with a xenomorph.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's what it looks like.
I'm into it.
And it's covered in kind of slime, and it's floating, and it gets really scary. And so I think what happened is they tested the movie in Australia. I don't know. They tested it somewhere, and the kids are like, "Oh, that's too scary," and then they changed the end. And I actually think that there might have been slight plot modification for the original end.
I'm looking at pictures right now of this alien. And smash or pass? I'm gonna smash.
Oh yeah, all right.
We try not to judge, but
okay.
I am judging.
So okay. So here's what it says. It says The Watcher in the Woods had this is Wikipedia. I'll just tell you. It had a limited release at New York City's Ziegfeld Theater in April 1980. It had overwhelmingly negative reaction, and it was pulled after 10 days. And the negative response prompted Disney to reshoot the end. It cost an additional $1 million. And in its place, Disney put out Mary Poppins.
So not Herbie Goes Bananas.
Not Herbie Goes. They put out Mary Poppins instead. They're like, oh, you know what? The alien. We'll give you Mary Poppins. That's gonna be good. That'll be good.
A spoonful of sugar.
That's right. How
lovely.
Funny.
That's awesome.
But yeah, the end. Yeah. Very, very interesting. So that original monster was too scary.
I feel like we are on the verge of going on circles, Nathaniel. It might be time to kind of wrap this package up and send it on its way.
Oh, yeah. That's totally fine. I was just going to say, from what I can tell, it looks like it mostly served the same function. Like it showed up and then explained everything, and then they swapped places.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like it did anything else that was that sinister.
Yeah.
It just looked really cool.
Yes. Yeah.
In a way that is very much not a Disney movie.
Again, smash.
Smash. Yeah, gross.
And
that's gross.
Gave Max new dream fuel. Okay.
Guys, tonight is gonna be a dark night for me. So here we go.
And we all know why.
We all know why.
Okay. So let's talk about ratings for this movie. Okay, so first let's talk about screams. So of course this is on our usual 0 to 10 scale. I would give this movie a 2. The jarring moments, especially some of that imagery, with the mirror really stood out to me. But other than that, like I mentioned, kind of got a little bored. So not that scary.
I mean, I also gave it a 2. Willow, don't be sad. I hope we can still be friends.
Though, if it had that original monster, I would have given it a 3.
I mean, I would have given it another score on a different scale, but we won't go there. When I saw it as a kid, Betty Davis was the scariest thing for me. Those piercing eyes that she has really, I don't know, it spoke to me on a different level than the actual horror of the film. So what say you, Willow?
So I think that it is unfair to rate this movie as an adult. No, I'm 100%. I'm 100% on this. I do not think it's fair to rate this film as an adult.
I can concede that.
I think that if you're gonna be honest with this film, you have to rate this movie as its intended audience, which is as a 10 to 12-year-old child.
I can concede that. I appreciate you saying that.
So as a 10 to 12-year-old child, I will give this movie a 6 on a scare.
All right.
Because it is not so scary that it is going to give me more than one nightmare.
Okay. Now, I do want to follow that up, though, with you as an adult woman. How scary is this movie?
Well, it's not scary, obviously. It's
Hold
like,
on.
you know,
I will always gauge movies on how many nightmares they give me now.
Yes, exactly. Like, that's really what it should be. This movie gave me one nightmare, and
for
then
6
I was
days.
Yeah. What? No, but seriously, as a grown woman who has seen lots and lots of scary things, but that's not really what this movie is, Nathaniel. So you can't force me to do that.
Okay, fair.
Because that's
right.
not what this movie is.
Let's do crowns though. Let's see here.
Well, I'm gonna give it a 4 because, admittedly, there are things that I quite like in this movie. But I mean, it really couldn't have hurt it to have that original monster. I'm all about this thing.
I give it a 5. I grew up with this film. It's one of the first horror movies I've watched. There was this. There was Arachnophobia. There was Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh yeah, man. Oh my gosh, yes.
I remember being little in my bottom bunk bed, seeing my neighbors drive into their parking lot, and I was convinced it was the Watcher who was about to take me, or something that I saw in Unsolved. There is that component of nostalgia, Nathaniel, that I know is perhaps problematic when we review and critique movies.
Hey, that's fine.
It's important, and I think it has value when we talk about films in a specific genre like this. So I'm gonna give it a 5.
Hey, if you can speak your truth about, you know, how lustful you are towards the Watcher.
So weird. You're so weird. But it's okay. I'm not judging you. I just,
Guys, I'm lonely, okay?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I am going to give this movie I'm going to go ahead and give it a 6. I feel pretty confident about that. I think that for what it's trying to do, it does a 6 out of 10. And if I was 10 to 12, would it hold my attention? 6 times out of 10 times, yes, it would.
I like that. that. I'm very stingy with my reviews, so I appreciate that nuance to your criticism.
I just don't think that you can really critique this one unless you're the person who it was meant to be seen by. And if I had my 12-year-old daughter here, I would ask. But here's what my 12-year-old daughter said when she saw it. She said, "Wow, that movie was weird and creepy, and some of it was boring." And that's about a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair.
I appreciate that. We'll have to have her on the podcast next.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
To review the remake of The Watcher.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well,
directed by Melissa Joan Hart.
Oh, yes. No, you're lying though, right?
No, I'm not. That is a real thing.
Oh my gosh, is she really? Is she the one who did it?
Yeah, Clarissa explains
it all. That's amazing. That's wonderful.
/ Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was a Lifetime TV show, and it has Betty,
what's her face? Yeah.
Replaced by Angelica Houston.
Yes, I know. I saw that, and I was
it's
like,
a good casting
no.
choice, but everything else about this sounds real bad.
Yeah, no. The answer is no. They should never remake this. They should never have tried. It is not remakeable. It's just not, because it was a movie that you had to see when you were small, and if
It
you
got
saw
a 6, but don't ever remake it ever.
No, never remake this movie, because it's kind of like, it's like Princess Bride. Don't touch it. It's perfect in its imperfection. It's exactly what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a very slow burn for a very small section of people that happen to be young people who liked horror. And it's a small little section of people. What's like Gravity Falls, right? Like, there's a section of people that want to watch horror when between the ages of 6 and 12. They're the kids that talk about ghosts at lunchtime, and they sneak into somebody's house and play with a Ouija board. Like, that's this group of kids. And this group of kids isn't huge, guys, but you and me and Nathaniel, we're this is us. We're the kids. We're those kids. And what happens is you watch in the Woods when you're that young, and then you grow up and you make better movies.
Wow, Willow, way to end it. That was awesome. Nathaniel, how are you staying spooky?
I am staying spooky by reading friend of the show Grady Hendrix's How to Sell a Haunted House.
Nice.
It is so good. I mentioned on our last episode that I got to watch his like presentation on how to sell a haunted house. That was a full-blown PowerPoint explaining the ins and outs of how you could treat that as an asset and use it to make your house even more sellable. It was a delight. And the book is also a delight, but for different reasons. It's a very good blend of creepy spookiness and some great moments of humor too, which is always just what Grady brings to the table. So highly recommend. I'm not done with it yet, but I am utterly loving it so far. And have to say, especially if you are skeeved out by puppets, this is the book for you.
Puppets are the worst. Let's be honest.
Well, then this book is for you. How are you staying spooky?
In 2 parts, I went and saw the kind of, I don't even know what to call it, the phenomena that is Megan.
Oh, right.
It is everything that it promised to be. It is not any sort of pinnacle of horror. It is quintessential, like, millennial pop horror that everyone...
That's hilarious.
Not Gen Z pop horror?
No.
I don't know. It's like that gray area between Gen Z and millennial.
Yeah.
It is what it promised it was gonna be. It's not good, but it's also phenomenal in its own right. I don't know. I'm so conflicted about it because it was not good, but I had a blast. It's just stupid. It's so good in its stupid little way.
Is it like Child's Play? Is it that level?
Child's Play, I would say, is better just because it has that. Child's Play is very scary in some regards, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have something as a child that you love. You have that stuffed animal. You have that Megazord that you love turn against you. This is more like corporate America turning against children.
Oh, weird.
Which is just like real life. But it's fun. Like it's very camp. And again, it's very much what it said it was going to be, and I was happy with that.
Random aside, now I totally want to write a short story about a Megazord haunting a young Max.
That would be the pinnacle of my life, and I could die happy if you do that, so please do. The other way I'm staying spooky is I haven't watched. I played a game called The Chant. It is a kind of an indie game based around the idea of a 70s, 80s cult where you join, not because you want to join, but because you have a friend in the cult who kind of persuades you to participate. And it is very kind of Lovecraftian in its approach. It talks a lot about grief and trauma and how that is, I don't know, when we talk about the Lovecraftian monsters, they're very esoteric and they're almost related to mental horror. You know, the personification of anxiety, of depression, of trauma, of PTSD. And it really tackles that in a very dark and intimate level, to the point where I had to stop playing because it was starting to hit me a little too close to home. So if you want something that really will cause you to cathart and recognize the Lovecraftian horror in your own life, I would recommend it. But be wary. It put me in a pretty negative place, and I had to stop and play, Kingdom Hearts, that is fun and Disney and just a little silly. So that's how I've been staying spooky. What about you, Willow?
Oh man, you kind of covered the gamut. So I'll start with the game because me and my daughters, I have 2 daughters. I have a teenager and I have a toddler, and we have been playing Betrayal at House. Anyway, yeah. So we've been playing Betrayal at House on the Hill. Do you know that game?
Yes, it's my favorite board game in the whole world.
Okay, awesome. So we actually have been playing this really weird jury-rigged version of this game where we are playing Betrayal at House on the Hill. Also, a game called Don't Tell Mom and Dad, which is a role-playing kind of a D&D style game that was it's an independent publisher. It was kickstarted like 3 years ago. Basically, you're a bunch of kids, like it's kind of like Goonies, and then you're traveling around your town and uncovering horrible things. So we're using the 2 games together to create kind of our own haunted house Goonies style D&D game, which is really, really fun. So that's cool. And then as far as film goes, I'm actually going to be shooting a short horror film here in about 2 weeks. I'll be shooting that horror film for film school here at BYU. So I'll be doing that, and I'm acting in that. I'm not directing that, but I'll be acting in that, so I'm excited about that. And then of course for reading, I've been reading from Buick Gate. So I'm just starting that, and I haven't read it. Someone told me that it was really good, and I had skipped over it because I was like, nah, I've already read Christine. I don't want to read this. But
whoever told you that lied to you. It is Stephen King's worst.
Oh no!
Oh, is it really?
I hate that book.
Oh,
I hate
really?
it so much. I thought it was so boring.
Oh, okay. Well, now I don't know what to do. But of course, I've also been reading my own book, which is Mother Tales of Love and Terror. We got some massive TikTok love at the beginning of the month. We had like 600,000 people view a review that someone did of the book, which was a lot of review. That's a lot of people looking at a good review. So it was really exciting. And now it's on this long list for the Stoker Award. So I've been reading my own book because I'm making the audio book for it, and that audio book should be out at the middle of February. So there'll be an audio version.
Nice.
Well,
all of this is awesome and exciting. Well, that kind of wraps up our usual discussion points. Where can people find you online? Just list off all of the websites and social media again, so that way it's...
Sure. Yeah, you can always find us at weirdlittleworlds.com, WEIRD littleworlds.com. And then we're on Twitter at weirdlitworlds. We're also on Instagram at weirdlitworlds. And then you can find us on Facebook, Weird Little Worlds, and Pinterest. I think we even have a Pinterest if you want to see what we're posting. The fact is that we're mostly on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Weird Lit Worlds. So, yeah, come find us. Oh, and on Amazon, obviously.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Come find some books on Amazon. We've got some really great short fiction. And also my novel, which is pretty great, Leto's Children.
And yes, get all of those things.
Get all those things.
Willow, please don't ever leave this podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'll be with you always, 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 always.
Ooh.
You've always been here.
You're always the podcast guest, Willow. I love it. Yeah, next time you guys watch something awesome, you should invite me over and I'll watch it with you.
I love to do horror movie nights, so
yes!
If you're in the area, Willow, your invite is standing.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. I would love it. I honestly think that you should see Something Wicked This Way Comes if you have an opportunity to. It is so weird.
Perfect.
Whoa, it's so weird.
And with that, all of our listeners, we love you. Go find Willow's merchandise. Go buy her book. We love you all. Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.
Need even more Scream Kings? Here's our obligatory shameless social media plug. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Scream Kings Pod. You could also email us at screamkingspodcast@gmail.com. Help us reach a wider audience of horror fans by leaving a review on iTunes or by sharing a link on social media. You can also support the show by going to patreon.com/Scream Kings. Stay spooky.